Hi guys, and welcome back to my course. In this video, we will talk a little more about JSX. In the previous video, we wrote some JSX code, and that JSX code rendered some UI elements in our application. So these are all pretty basics. We just created an h3 paragraph tag, etc. So let's try creating a bit more complex layout using JSX. Let's try creating a blog card. So let's say div, and inside that blog card, we can have a heading, say blog title 1. We can have a bit of description, say lorem ipsum dolor. Now when I save this, it gets updated in my application. So as you can see, this is a static block card, and as we discussed earlier, this data can also come from objects. So let's create one object. So we don't need all this code, so I'm just removing it. Say constant blog object. Let's say title. Say blog title 1. Description. Let's just copy this. So now this object, it represents a block card. So let's try using these values. So blog object dot title. Similarly, blog object dot description. So when I save it, we still get the same data. Now say we wanted multiple of these cards. So let's just copy it. Let's say we wanted 3 cards. So 1 paste, 2 paste. So as you can see, now we've got 3 block cards. Now this doesn't look like a card because we haven't added any styles to it, and we haven't learned how to add styles. So let's just add a division between these so that they look different. Let's save it. And as you can see, now these look a little like 3 different cards, or 3 different sections at least. So what happens when we write this JSX code? So what happens behind the scenes? So this JSX code gets converted to JavaScript code by Babel. So let's check it out. So heading out to Babel. Okay, so if we write some code on the left-hand side, say division. So on the right-hand side, as you can see, it's giving us react.create element with some parameters. So that's what happens. So every JSX element, it gets converted to this statement react.create element. And this react.create element method is imported from the React module. So if you notice in your code, on the top we have imported this React module. So that's why it's required. So if I remove this and save my code, it gives us an error. So React must be in scope when using JSX. So let's bring it back. Okay, so coming back here to Babel. So this create element method, it can have 3 arguments. So the first one needs to be the element name. In this case, it's a division, so that's why we're giving div. Second is the properties or the attributes that we give here. So let's say we give it a class name, say main div. So that property is wrapped in an object and passed as a second argument. And third parameter, or the third argument for this method, is the child components. So let's say we have an h3 here. So as you can see, now the third argument or the third parameter is create element statement for the child. Similarly, if we had one more, so as you can see, and the second argument is null because we haven't passed any properties or attributes. So if we give this also a class name, say main heading, we get an object as the second argument, and inside that object we have all the properties. Similarly, there's another argument which represents the second child. So if we keep on adding child, number of arguments will keep increasing. And if we remove all the child elements, so our create element will just have two arguments, the element type and the object representing the element's properties. Okay, so moving on. All right, so let's try bringing our JSX code to Babel. So let's say, let's cut this. Let's paste it here. So as you can see, it's giving us an error. Adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. So there's a requirement for Babel to convert this JSX to JavaScript. The topmost element or the root element should always be 1. So in this case, there are 3. So we've got 1 div, 2 div, and 3 div. So I'll just copy this entire thing. And now when I paste it here, so it creates this JavaScript code for us. So this JSX is optional. So if I just copy this code, and instead of this JSX, I paste that JavaScript code with react.createElement, we still get the same structure. So as you can see, you have to write this kind of code to generate elements. So that's why JSX is recommended, because it helps you write more elegant and readable code. So here, there are so many React Create elements, you don't know which one is the parent element, which one is the child. So I'll just revert it back. And if you remember, I mentioned that there should always be one root element. So if I remove this wrapping div, I come back here, it gives us the same error. So adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in a closing tag. So that's why if I revert it back to a div, which is a parent element, the error goes away. So in React, we can also create our custom components. So when you write something like this, React interprets the lowercase elements as HTML elements. But if you write something like this, it doesn't give you an error because it expects this to be a custom component. So the Pascal case elements are treated as custom components. In the next video, we will learn how to create custom components. And that's all for now. I hope this gave you a better understanding of JSX. But if you have any doubts or queries, feel free to drop a comment below or reach out to me on Twitter. I'll add my Twitter handle in the description below. See you in the next video. Bye and take care.